Tonight, Saskatoon police officers speak out after 5 of their fellow officers were suspended. A long-awaited multi-million-dollar leisure centre opens its doors in Prince Albert. And it's training camp time for 2 high-profile Regina Pats prospects.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, August 28th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams. Thank you for joining us. Some Saskatoon police officers are speaking out about the suspension of 5 co-workers last year. It happened after a house party hosted by a member of the emergency response team. Dan Zakreski has our top story.
As you know, the Saskatoon Police Service recently initiated an administrative review under the Police Act following an incident that occurred off-duty in mid-September of this year. This also resulted in the suspension with pay of 5 officers.
This was Saskatoon Police Chief Cameron McBride last November talking to reporters at the police station. McBride never did say what the officers did to get suspended, only whatever happened off-duty. Almost 1 year later, he's still not saying why the officers are under investigation.
So that has been a large investigation. It has been one with many facets and many different things to look into. That's why it's taken so long. Certain elements from within that circumstance have been concluded. Certain elements are still outstanding.
Behind the scenes, though, police are talking. Officers who reached out to CBC say the investigation was triggered by a house party hosted by a member of the elite emergency response team. That 3 of the tactical team members were suspended. It's alleged that one of them assaulted a junior female officer at the party. We're not naming the officers who reached out because they weren't authorized to speak. But they say police across the station began talking after the assault investigation revealed the identity of a guest at the party. That guest was a member of an outlaw motorcycle gang and friends with the tactical team. Now, rank-and-file police officers are concerned that there was a party with a biker, the tactical team, and undercover cops. They wonder what the biker and his friends now know about sensitive police operations. Officers are also angry with what happened after the suspensions were made public. They say other members of the tactical team showed up at work last fall wearing T-shirts with the slogan #FreeOurBoys2024. McBride says he knows some officers were offended, but he doesn't think that was the intent.
You know, again, it all depends on the interpretation and the motivation of those who developed that. What message were they providing? And certainly we see circumstances all the time where the intended message is not the message that's received. Yeah. And I think that, I believe in my heart, that was the case here, that it was individuals saying one thing, but other people receiving it differently and being very offended by it. McBride ordered the tactical team members to stop wearing the T-shirts. At last word, the CERT and internal investigations are both still underway. 4 of the 5 suspended officers remain suspended with pay. CBC has learned that one of the 5 suspended officers was dismissed at the end of July. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Métis Nation Saskatchewan says its communities are in crisis. It's declared a state of emergency because of ongoing issues with drugs and alcohol, as well as gangs and violence. MNS Provincial Council passed the declaration last week. It allows the organization to work with provincial and federal governments to figure out solutions to the crisis. MNS's Mental Health and Addictions Minister says it is particularly challenging for Métis people to find culturally grounded safe spaces and treatment programs.
We see where the gaps are. and we can talk. And there's so many Band-Aid solutions in communities that are causing more harm to our communities and more harm to people. So by calling a state of emergency, we are acknowledging that the talk needs to now turn into action.
MNS says talks are already underway to address the issues. That includes establishing a land-based treatment facility on sacred grounds around Batoche. People in a Regina neighborhood came together Wednesday evening to discuss better safety measures in their community. It comes after a shooting earlier this month which injured a young girl. Aaliyah Marco Omene reports.
Residents of Regina's Eastview neighborhood are still on edge. They're waiting for more info from police after someone fired multiple shots at this house earlier this month. An 11-year-old girl inside was seriously injured. The neighborhood's community association is now hoping to address some residents' concerns. They gathered Wednesday night to answer questions and were joined by the area's MLA, city councillor, and the police.
Especially when you're looking at new people coming into the neighborhood, what do you tell them? The people that have been living here for a while, it comes as a drastic shock because this has never happened before.
The incident is especially troubling for people who have children.
And at the exact same moment, I had a 5-year-old sleeping in her bedroom, and basically it could have been a stray bullet coming into my house instead of someone else's.
With so much uncertainty surrounding the shooting, Gray says rumors have begun circulating.
So you try your best to stop those because no one really knows for sure. And so you try and turn the focus on what can we do as a community to ensure that if something like this happens, what precautions do we have?
The community association says it also wants to shift people's focus to the answers they do have.
The biggest thing that we didn't know was this little girl okay? There was a whole bunch of rumors at the time. She is doing better. We from what we understand, she's still in recovery, but she's alive, and so that's the biggest thing. And so, let's all grab joy from that and make sure that we can all be happy in regards to that.
Aaliyah Marco Omene, CBC News, Regina.
The NDP says the province needs to do better for its social services clients. The opposition says it's received reports of bed bugs and cockroaches in rooms at Regina's Coachman Motor Inn, and they say they've also heard about drug dealers trying to push crystal meth on customers. The province puts up social services clients at the motel, and records show that it's paying $128 per room. But the NDP say they were able to get a quote as low as $80.
For the rate the government is paying, there's no reason to put clients in these horrible conditions. That's why we're calling on the Sask Party to remove the coachman from their list of social services accommodation immediately.
The NDP says the provincial government paid the Coachman Motor Inn nearly $250,000 between 2022 and 2024. Blakely believes this is a poor use of taxpayer dollars. Well, in less than a week, the newly finished St. Francis Cree School in Saskatoon will welcome close to 600 students. The rebuilt school cost around $48 million and was designed with the help of elders. The school places an emphasis on Indigenous teachings and features unique spaces, including a greenhouse classroom, a game room to teach students how to skin hunted animals, and a sewing space to create traditional regalia and beadwork. Greater Saskatoon Catholic Schools says students will be immersed in a new way of learning.
The pedagogy and the way that they'll be taught is going to be unique in that the teachers will work together in a pod-style learning. And so gone are the days, I guess, of when a student goes in and sits in a perfect little row and has the teacher at the front. You now have a community of teachers, so 3 of them working together to teach you in different ways. So I think it'll provide a lot of our ability to be responsive to the different learning styles.
An outdoor powwow space is also being built. The division says it will be ready by winter. There's a new study warning that wildfires are erasing decades of improvement in air quality. That information is in the updated edition of the Air Quality Life Index from the University of Chicago. Researchers say that the area burnt during the 2023 wildfire season was record-breaking, and it fueled Canada's worst air quality in nearly 30 years. It also pushed pollution levels in the U.S. to their highest since 2011. They found that more than half of Canadians faced air pollution above the national safety standard last year. Health experts say this is leading to long-term effects on the health of Canadians.
When you have these exposures year-round, essentially, or many months of the year, then we're talking about chronic disease. So not just someone with a disease that gets worse, someone that never had a disease developing something. And again, there's already evidence for as much as cancer from this, which is quite concerning.
Well, the dog days of summer are not over yet for these pups. They are still enjoying the hot, sunny weather in Regina. It's also a good reminder to make sure your furry friends are also taking breaks in the shade and drinking lots of water too. And it looks like they'll need to heed that advice for a few more days. Riley Lachuk has the hot weather details in his forecast after the break. A long-awaited leisure centre is finally open in Prince Albert. It replaces a previous indoor pool in the city that had reached the end of its lifespan last year. And as Jeremy Warren reports, the facility is for more than just swimmers.
Prince Albert's new sports complex hopes to make a big splash. The $118 million Lake Country Co-op Leisure Centre is in the city's southeast. It's been nearly a decade in the making, and on Thursday, the Leisure Centre is holding its first ever public swim. Features an 8-lane, 25-meter competitive pool, plus a water slide and wave pool. This replaces the city's 50-year-old Frank J. Dunn pool. The old pool didn't meet standards for provincial swim meets, but the new, larger, modern pool does, and swim teams are pleased.
I think it's a good investment for the future, for the swimming community, and not just for swimming, because there's other activities there. So I think it's a great idea and a great opportunity for everyone from PA residents, and I think they will love it.
The Leisure Centre also has 2 arenas with NHL-sized ice rinks. Hockey camps are already using them. Demand for ice time is high. Some groups book rinks in surrounding communities. The Leisure Centre anchors a new commercial development called the Yard District. The city says the new hotels, stores, and restaurants in the area will benefit from events at the Leisure Centre and help pay for it.
With this being the kind of the anchor tenant and then attracting the other businesses that came on site, allows us to access additional property tax revenue, development levies through that process as examples that then all assists in the overall funding model to build this facility.
The Leisure Centre also features large common areas, meeting rooms, and retail space for a sporting goods store. But the project isn't done. The city is fundraising to build an extension. Those plans include a third, larger arena to eventually house the WHL's Prince Albert Raiders. Jeremy Warren, CBC News, Saskatoon.
And it is training camp season in the WHL. The Raiders begin their camp on Friday. The Regina Pats, meanwhile, began theirs on Thursday. And it's an important one for the franchise as 2 powerhouse rookies are taking to the ice. Dan Plaster has that story.
The whirlwind spring and summer for Maddox Schultz has finally come to an end in his favorite place, on the ice.
Yeah, it was really fun. Getting out there and meeting all the new guys and the Pats organization's players and playing with them and playing against them. It's obviously real cool.
The first overall pick in the 2025 Western Hockey League Prospects Draft is just starting his first ever junior training camp. For the Regina Pats, that means it's the dawn of a new era. For Maddox Schultz, he just wants to be a better teammate and better on the ice.
Obviously winning, with this team, I think we got a pretty good chance to, win a couple games this year, obviously do better than last year. I think that's probably the team's main priority right now.
Schultz isn't the only one feeling the pressure. Third overall pick, Liam Pugh is also making his Pats training camp debut. Like Schultz, Pugh is a high-energy, high-level forward who is happy to be finally on the ice with the team.
It's definitely the biggest jump I've had. I've always kind of played a year or two up. U18 was my biggest jump last year, but this is definitely a big step up. But I know I can do it, and I mean, I've done it my whole life, so it's kind of just doing the things I've done every other year and preparing for the season.
Schultz and Pugh will be able to play 34 games with the Pats as underagers this season while also playing their second U18 season. It's one of the key things Pats coaches and staff will have to watch.
Yeah, we went through it. We have a schedule for them and have talked with the Pat Canadians, their agents, and their families and shown them the schedule. The expectation is that they'll play their 34 games and we'll help our team get to the playoffs.
Having such dominant players as underagers can be a blessing and a curse. They'll have to adjust to playing against much older players, but it's something both have been used to their whole careers. They're excited to work together and cultivate a winning hockey team over the next few seasons.
We're kind of getting ready for our 16-year-old year, me and Maddox, kind of just developing, because it's obviously a big jump from U18 to the WHL, so it's kind of making sure me and him are both ready for our 16-year-old year so we can just jump right into it.
You know, the rookies are going to be up and coming. They're going to be playing some games this year. Obviously, me and Liam can play 34, so that'll be really exciting.
The future is looking bright with Schultz and Pugh on the hockey club. And if you want your first look at both of them, head on out to the blue and white game on Monday night at the Brandt Center. Dan Plaster, CBC News, Regina.
Well, it's hard to believe that hockey season is right around the corner when it's so beautiful and so hot across the province. Another warm one for us today. And weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now to see if this is all going to continue. Hi, Riley.
Well, thanks, Ethan. Certainly another hot day really across the province and really across Western Canada. Thought I'd start big picture, taking a look at just how widespread this ridge has really introduced some warm southerly air into the prairie provinces. So Manitoba 26, close to 30 degrees in the south through the afternoon, 30s into Saskatchewan, into 32-degree territory into Alberta, and some warm conditions stretching well back into British Columbia as well. So that just gives you a sense at how widespread things have gotten over the past couple of days with the heat. Closer to home, 31 this afternoon in Saskatoon, 30s in Regina, into 31, 32 degree territory into northwestern parts of the province as well. Some of these temperatures upwards of 10 degrees above seasonal for this time of the year. So that puts it into a little bit of context, just the kind of heat that we're dealing with here. And I mean, I mentioned it yesterday, but worth repeating again, not a lot of humidity. So that's kind of the saving grace in all this, is that we're not looking at oppressive humidity on top of some of this heat. Nonetheless, still hot. This ridge of high pressure firmly in place over Western Canada with this trough back to the west. Temperatures markedly colder into parts of Ontario, barely getting over 19 and 20 degrees in parts of Ontario this afternoon. So quite a difference in air masses over the eastern and western parts of the country as we've gotten over the last few days here. Few clouds introduced into the mix today. So, I mean, a mix of sun and clouds for the south, mainly sunny skies once again through northern sections. Still this heat warning remaining in place for a good chunk of northern and central Saskatchewan. Highs upwards of 30 degrees, but it's also the overnight lows that we're looking at here. Close to 15 degrees or warmer as we get through the next several days. So it's not just the heat, it's the fact that we're not really getting much relief from some of that as we get through into the weekend here. And what you see is kind of what you get is mainly sunny skies, bit of extra cloud cover in the south as we start Friday. There's a bit of troughing ahead of a low pressure system south of the border. This could bring a couple of stray showers into extreme southern parts of the province early in the morning, maybe even as far north as Regina, the hint of a shower first thing. Other than that, we're into a mix of sun and clouds Saturday through Sunday. This pattern holding, although it does start to weaken as we get into early next week. And that will signal a shift in our pattern back toward more seasonal temperatures. So even into Sunday, looking at temperatures remaining above seasonal. But as we get into Monday and Tuesday, you can start to see this big trough starting to form in the jet stream as we get into the middle part of the week. And this is going to introduce some much cooler air as we get into the middle of next week. Around back to school, we're looking at things feeling a lot more fall-like. Quick snapshot, 4 o'clock Friday afternoon, your temperatures 29 in Regina, upwards of 30 into Saskatoon, into the Battlefords. And Ethan, I'll talk about the forecast, particularly for the Labor Day Classic, when I come back in just a bit.
Okay, thank you, Riley. And if you're doing some yard work this coming long weekend, you can add pruning your elm trees to the list. The last day for the annual ban on elm tree pruning is Sunday. The ban is in place to prevent diseases from impacting the trees. And a reminder to make sure you get rid of that extra elm wood quickly if you do any upcoming pruning. Stay with us. We're back after the break. Welcome back. The Saskatchewan Roughriders are hoping for revenge during this year's Labor Day Classic. The Riders welcome the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to town Sunday for the 60th edition of the Labor Day matchup. The Green and White lost last year's game 35-33. Despite having the best record in the CFL at 8-2 this season, Riders QB Trevor Harris says the fans let him know how important this game is.
Yeah, I mean, I was at Costco yesterday, and I think 6 or 7 people stopped me and said, hey, big game this weekend, and I was like, they were like, hey, we got 8 wins, but we need 9, and so quite a few people, start stopping and talking to you, and you can kind of feel the game in the air, and, people talking about they're cooking out and what they're going to be doing for the Labor Day game, and my landlord, was telling her plans that they have going for that game, and so it's just like, man, like, this is kind of a big time, and so it's pretty exciting. Really fired up about this one.
Mario Alford was a full participant at practice again Thursday and will return for this weekend's game. Kicker Brett Lowther was on the practice field to start, but left shortly after due to what the club is calling personal issues. Campbell Fair will kick in his spot if Lowther is unable to go. The sold-out Labor Day Classic kicks off at 5 o'clock on Sunday.
All right, I know we're only at Thursday, but we are looking at a pretty big football game happening over the weekend in Regina with the Labor Day Classic, and what you see is what you get. Temperature-wise, at least, as we head into the weekend. So maybe some extra cloud cover into Friday. 32s for Friday, Saturday in Regina. 31, looking hot for that game. Not necessarily humid. Maybe tack on a couple degrees for the humidity into Sunday for that football game. And then look at what happens into next week. Temperatures dipping back towards seasonal in the low 20s for Tuesday, Wednesday into Thursday. Really much the same for Saskatoon. We're looking at the heat remaining in place. 32 on the way for Friday. 30, 31 into the weekend under mainly sunny sky, and then there's that pattern change happening as we get into next week. 24 for Monday, maybe a few showers first thing in the morning on Tuesday for back to school, and then Ethan, we're staying in the low 20s, 23s and 22s really for the balance of the week, taking us back to much more seasonal temperatures.
Yes, how nice of fall to wait until the kids are back to school to show up. Thanks so much, Riley. And that is our news for this Thursday. For more news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to our CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. And of course, you can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.